I love our conversations at the beginning of these videos, but we're probably going to keep this one as short as possible due to the fact that I got the feeling this video is probably already too long. If you'll remember, back in January, whenever I got the Daily DeathTrap, I said I really want a Targa top on that truck. An extended cab looks awesome with a Targa, but they don't make Targa tops anymore. And if you find a new old stock Targa top, chances are it's going to run you somewhere close to $3,000. I didn't pay that much for the truck. So the next best idea is build your own Targa top. Of course, now I'm not in the plastics industry, but I do have a welder. So in this video, we're going to start the process of building a full metal Targa kit. Now, we're not going to cut the roof and put in a custom Targa. We're going to build a Targa kit that we can then install over the course of, say, a weekend. That's the plan. Let's see how well that plan works out. All right, before we get started on this project, let's talk about our donor vehicle. Junkyard sold it to me because it sat on the yard for so many years without selling any parts, which kind of confuses me until you get up on it and start looking at it. Now, the front clip is, for the most part, as far as I can tell, and it's in pretty decent shape. The bumper's got good bends and dents all the way down it, so naturally I stole that into the bumper and used it on the Martha Stewart truck. As far as the front clip goes, other than that, the only places that are totally rusted out are the places you expect them. Now, the cab we're going to use on this project, and this is why I bought the truck, because I've got uses for each of these parts. The bed seems to be in decent shape when you first look at it, and that makes you wonder why nobody snatched the bed off of it already. I plan to use it for the hot tub project if we ever get to that project. And when you get down to it, there's a whole bunch of spots like this that you can stick your finger in, scattered all the way through this bed, and that's probably why nobody took the bed. Dash on this truck is in pretty decent shape, so we're going to save that and tuck it back in the back eventually. For now, we're just going to leave it in place. Interior is mostly shot, so we're not worried about that. Now, the cab doesn't have a title, so we can't use it in this state, but again, there are places like this scattered all over this cab. So the truck has got so many problems with it as far as body parts go, to the point that there's not a lot you can do with it. Now understand, we are not going to cut this roof panel out and use it on the DeathTrap. We are going to cut the roof panel out, then we're going to use the cab to build our own homemade Targa kit. So back in the day, if you bought a Godfather kit, something like that, you got 4 bows with it. They were usually plastic. I assume they always were. But when you went to cut your truck, you just installed the 4 plastic bows on your truck, and it's a one-day install. In this case, we're going to cut this. We're going to build a similar kit out of metal. Then we're going to transfer that kit from this truck and we're going to weld it in on the DeathTrap. Before anything whatsoever gets cut, we're going to weld in a piece of 16 gauge metal that matches this curve and has a lip on it that will hold this roof in that shape when we do cut it out. We're going to do that on the gold truck to test the theory. If it works on the gold truck, then we'll know that it works here. So we're not cutting anything until we get these two pieces of metal broke and ready to go in. Now we're doing this outside in 90+ degree heat because last time I did this inside the garage, I ended up with a concussion because I couldn't breathe. Now I got a really good friend that has a 8-foot industrial metal brake, so I took this 16 gauge metal over. He and I put a brake in it, bent it up real nice. It's good and stiff, and I think this will make an excellent cross brace to keep the roof in the right shape while we're doing this project. Now it might seem like I'm going the wrong way about this. We should have already made our patterns and put it on the metal and then broke it, but there's a reason. You got to keep in mind that 2 of these are going on that gold truck. Then we need to make sure there's enough metal just in case any adjustments need to be made to put them on the DeathTrap. So that's the reason we've got 4, 2 out there, make adjustments before the other 2 get installed here. So I cut out some cardboard boxes. Let's make a pattern. Now ideally, you would want a cardboard pattern that reached all the way across. But our cardboard's not as wide as this cab, so we're gonna have to tape multiple pieces together. That being said, that might make it easier actually, because we can do the center section and then do this by itself, that by itself, put them together to get the whole pattern. We about to have a mess up in this truck. A pattern like this one is one of the most difficult to do because it's not like you can just lay it down and trace something out. You got to make it fit. And sometimes that's a lot more difficult than you think it might be. This is going to take a while, so we'll catch up in a little while. All right, so our pattern is close. It's not right, but it's close. So here's what we're going to do. Got some painter's tape from Dollar General. So it's a cheap tape because I'm a broke joker. And I'm gonna put it half on, half off my cardboard, then I'm gonna fold it over. I can put it where I want it, and that wasn't it. Put it where I want it, tape it to the roof. Do the same thing on the other end. We're gonna take short pieces of tape, run it up to the roof, but not stick it to the roof. And we're going to stick it to the cardboard. Now once we get all of these pieces of tape in place, then we'll have a defined cut line that we can cut. Then we can transfer this pattern to a solid piece of cardboard and make a proper pattern to use for the project. I'm on the wrong side of the truck. That's what the problem is. At least right now. It's not the only problem I've got, but it's a problem I'm dealing with at the moment. All right. That looks pretty good. Let's cut that out and transfer it. Before we do that, we mark it, and we mark it, and we know where it was as far as the shape goes. That tape will flex if you let it. Now you may have noticed that I am using a different kind of box for my patterns. And that's because of my cardiologist. he told me I needed to use a different box to make patterns with. Or at least that's what I heard. What he actually said was something about triglycerides and carb intake or something. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. Beautiful. Meanwhile, it's time for work. Actually, it's past time for work. Alright, when I made the pattern and built this overhead brace, I did it using the DeathTrap. Now, let's go out to the donor vehicle, see if it fits the donor vehicle. Right off the bat, I want to say, guys, do us all a favor. Before you take a truck to the junkyard, please, for the love of God, slide the seat back, because as soon as it hits a junkyard, somebody's going to take off the doors or the glass or something. The seat rails are going to get rusted up to the point that you can't slide it back anymore. And that makes it very difficult for us fat boys to get up in here and do the work we want to do. It doesn't fit the same way in this vehicle that it does that vehicle. The ends right here are a touch too short, and the ends right here are a touch too long, which makes me worry that if I build my kit to fit this truck, will it universally swap over to fit that truck when we get to the 48-hour project? I don't know. So obviously this brace is going to have to be trimmed and made to fit this truck, which means we probably need to go ahead and duplicate this and then either trim this one or the next one to fit this truck, because we know that this fits the DeathTrap pretty well, and we'd like to not ruin that. So yesterday we got the metal cut out for the front reinforcements, but we needed to build a pattern for the back reinforcements because it was a little bit wider. And I didn't want to mess up the original pattern, so what I did was I transferred it to another piece of cardboard, cut the new piece in half, taped one side to the roof on one side of the truck, the other side taped it to the roof on the other side, filled the gap with another piece of small cardboard, which gave us a brand new pattern which matches the roof line for the back half of the Targa. Now, I still had about 10 minutes left before I had to go to work. So, let's run out to the gold truck, test it out. And that's when I found that those two trucks have structural differences between them. Now, I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I came about this close to crying like a baby who was just told he's never going to be able to breastfeed again. Let's go check out the differences. Now, let's look at the internal structure of this cab. You have your outside metal out here, and then you have this internal brace right here. Now, obviously, in the front, you've got the corner, which is a separate piece of metal. There is a third piece of metal structurally introduced over the door. Remember this piece of metal on the gold truck? This piece of metal goes over it. So this was part of the original design, just like it was over there, but then they have an additional piece of structural metal in place on top of that. Now, this is not a deal breaker. We can still do this, but I'm gonna have to pay attention up here where all the curves and angles and where I'm cutting, and all that happens. More importantly, I've got to pay attention to the measurements. Make sure that this truck is the same as that truck. It's not like we can't build it over there and transfer it here, as long as we make provisions in the kit for when it goes on this truck. Because once it goes on this truck, it has to match and it has to fit. So we just got to be aware of all the different measurements. For example, the gap right here. Is that gap the same over there? I don't know yet. We're going to have to measure that. The width. I assume the width to be pretty close, but let's not assume anything here. We only get one shot when it comes to the installation. Yeah, that makes it hard to do a video. But I ain't about to tell her to stop. I mean, would you? All right, so we got all 4 of these roof braces cut out, but we've still got some patterns to make. But we can't do that until we get the roof off of this truck. In order to get the roof off the truck, we got to weld these braces into place. So I went to the big boy toy store and bought some welding blankets, fiberglass welding blankets, threw them in there. I want to save that dash, so I don't want it to get messed up from welding sparks and what have you. And I definitely don't want to burn the truck down while we're doing this. So all right, I'm not sure how much of this you're going to be able to see. So basically, I took this line and extended it straight instead of making the curve. There's my mark. We're going to do that on both sides. We'll probably cut the front from the inside because we want to follow the edge of the factory metal here. On the back side, our cut line needs to be about right here. Now I know that looks odd with that section sticking out, but you got to take into consideration that the door is open or missing. So when the door is closed, the window pillar will sit right here, which makes our cut line right about here. Well, I hope this works. I've never done this before, but my thought process is this. We're going to cut the 4 corners first. That way the rest of the roof will hold everything in place, and we'll come up on the outside and C-clamp the corners together so that when we cut one side of the roof, it doesn't fall down and bind up before we cut the other side. Now the key to doing this apparently is make sure that your grinding wheel is vertical. And that's hard to do when you're trying to stay out from in front of the grinding wheel, just in case it breaks and slaps you in the face, maybe cuts your jaw or something. And now Goldilocks has a Targa top.
Yay!
All right, I'm pretty happy right now, but it's getting late, and tomorrow we'll pick up on this, make the rest of those patterns. Right now, I got the feeling I need a shower. All right, after measuring everything out from the windshield, I realized that my cut line wasn't as horrible as I thought. It's in the right spot. Oh, it was ugly, all right, but it's still in the right spot. Nonetheless, We still got to clean this up, straighten it out, get this piece of metal perfect with, or at least as close to perfect as we can get with this inner piece of metal. So let's clean it up, and then we can build the rest of our patterns. First pattern we need to make is from the for the shape of the bow on the cab, top to bottom. That ain't gonna work, gotta come up some more. That's close enough. Next step is we need a pattern that follows this roof line. All right. Thank you for your assistance.
You're welcome.
All right, so now we got half a dozen patterns. On the front, we've got one that matches the bow of the roof line. And then we've got two that match the bow of the curve for the Targa. We've got to have a piece of metal that goes here to mount the Targa on, just like a factory Targa kit back in the day. And then we've got to have a pattern from the other side that matches this curve, because we've got to have a lip that we're going to mount our rubber seals on. On the back, we've got a pattern that matches the curve of the top of the cab, and then we've got a strip here which doesn't need a pattern due to the fact that it's a straight line, as well as here, but they both have to match this curve, or at least close. We're probably going to end up welding this up to about this point and then leaving the rest of it and welding it on the DeathTrap, due to the fact that there are going to be some differences between the width and the curvature of this cab versus the DeathTrap cab. So that's where we stand at the moment. All right, so we got all of our patterns made. The next step is cut out some metal, weld it up, and build an old school Targa kit out of metal, similar to the plastic kits you would have seen back in the day. But we're gonna have to do that on part 2 of this video series. Now, if you're already subscribed to this channel, thank you. I'm gonna do these projects anyway, but you guys watching my videos, commenting, leaving me encouragement, that's what gives me the motivation to keep putting it out on YouTube. We're about 200 people away from reaching the all-important 1,000 subscribers, which most YouTubers are looking for whenever they start doing it. And we all know this. So here in just a second, you're going to get a subscribe button up here. If you're not subscribed, thank you for checking out my channel. If you like what you see, consider subscribing. I don't say that very often. And check out this video, and depending on when you're watching it, it might be part 2. Gives you about 20 seconds, then YouTube picks something else for you.